Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And let me pass my heartfelt condolences to you for what happened. Traumatic experience, no question about that. And I had spoken to you at around the time of the incident, and I spoke to you again today. So please accept our condolences. And I have to say that the attack on you stunned many Nigerians. Remind us of what happened on that fateful day.
Thank you so much for having me, Charles, and thank Arise for also beaming such light even as the attack was going on. I appreciate so much. It's something that I don't even know how to explain, but I said yesterday when the family said I cannot come out, that I will find a way to tell my own side of the story. But I cannot say without first thanking God Almighty for keeping me alive today. It was very horrible, it was very painful, it was very devastating. And that was around 1-2 p.m. So I was in the office attending to our party members and campaign people. A text came in, but I didn't look at it because I was in a meeting. So later on, I opened my phone and somebody sent me a text message that gunmen were asking for the direction to my home. So I started seeing series of calls from our people, from all the way from Obioya down to Akwakwa, that they saw these people approaching. So I have to now run outside to tell the security men that it looks like there's going to be attack here. That was around 1-2 thereabout p.m. that they should get ready. So as I was still talking, because I was grading the road, I was trying to tar the road, so there's dust. So vehicle was approaching in high speed, convoy of vehicle. So I told the security man that was by my side, stop the vehicle. So he raised his hand and said, stop, and then fired warning shot. Before I could even understand what is going on, they have jumped down from the car from that distance and opened fire directly at my direction. And then he hit the gates. It was like fly, boom. So we pulled back inside one of the compound. From that particular point, they started throwing the bomb. Everything that was on the way was bomb. Rode straight into the main central compound, into one of the Obidia. They kept on throwing the explosive until that one caved in. Then they started throwing it into under the vehicle. Some of the cars that were open, they were throwing it inside. So the explosive was what caused the the damage, the big damage you are seeing. And then they kept on firing at anything that they can see. There was one innocent man, Chief Iyejirika, who came from Lagos, one of our supporters and a very good friend of the family, to come and see me. He was just arriving. So they said the people that was around, who was hiding in one of the rooms there, had them saying, look at the father, gun him down, because he was wearing a red cap. So they thought he was my father. They chased him inside one of the OB and shot him dead at that particular point. Already they have dragged my lovely uncle, Uncle Dan, who they were forcing to show them, the people that saw them at the marketplace where they picked him, the direction to my place, because they had the vehicle that has my stuff on it. So when they brought him, they shot him near the gate. They put the gun near the neck and then shattered it. And then there's another guy they killed at the before the entrance, one of our supporters. But what is paining us most is that you can remember, you must have got my SOS message, which I sent to the whole media, yes, security agencies. Everybody in Nigeria got that message. So throughout when this thing started happening, we had expected that the army people that is not up to 30 minutes away and the police command would have sent help. People were calling them. People called them from different parts of this country. There is a particular DIG, I will not mention his name. He believes that the right thing should be done. He called even some of them. There's a lot of them that kept on calling them supporters, party members, but no help was coming. It was like, don't come until Ikenga is killed. So they kept on operating. Maybe they didn't expect that they were going to mix me, and then possibly it was supposed to be a surprise attack. And maybe they didn't know we had some also policemen that was also around who were firing warning shot. And my place is like a close. So they were so worried about exit. So the destruction was massive. Everything in that compound was brought down. The whole windows, everything. My father nearly got killed because he was on the floor. I didn't know how they missed him, and they were firing in between the wall where he was. So it was so painful, and help did not come. By the time the area command came, they have already left. At least I appreciate the area commander and the DPO for even coming. But all the way from the state down to Olu, where they have even their unofficial security arrangement and whatever they say they have put in place, they refuse to come. And also people that helped me to reach some of the top brass in the security, they were told that they were told to stand down. And up till now, I don't even know who told them to stand down. they didn't come, no hope. Until the next day, the Deputy Commissioner of Police from, and I appreciate him, who came to assess what happened. He promised an investigation. We gave him some of the bullets that we were able to pick and some of the explosive. They went back. We are not also heard from them. Then the next thing was to hear all of them are talking about that there was a plan for election not to hold. And Charles, you have been here, I've been campaigning for almost 2-3 years.
In other words, that there was a plan by you.
Yes, that the election should not hold. So funny and ridiculous. And coming from a chief executive officer who swore to an oath to protect lives and property, I have serious problem with the way he emerged, because to me, I'm most simply in him, we never voted for him. But that is a discussion for another day. I had expected him that even in that controversial legitimacy issue, that he can do the right thing, which is have respect for human life. Then what did he do? The next thing, he had a prepared speech, which you saw on TV, as if he felt maybe I was going to die. He's going to tell Imo people that it was ESN and IPOB that killed me. And in the midst of that counter-argument and argument, people will forget about it. But unfortunately for him, I didn't die. And then he opened his mouth to say that he had security report that I had meetings with some groups that the election will not hold. And I went ahead to campaign, and then they decided to kill me. So one thing is fact here. So of them, I knew that there was a plan to kill me. So what is your duty as chief security officer? And then you say, I deserve dates. So that was so, I don't know the right word to use in describing that particular comment.
Let's take this systematically.
Yes.
First of all, what is the state of play with a police investigation into this incident? Because the presumption has to be that the police, which is a federal police as opposed to a state police, has a responsibility to investigate any crime, particularly one that is a threat to life and where life has been taken.
And I will say this clearly, like I told you before, that the Deputy Commissioner of Police came the next day, and then they collected some of the explosive and bullets and so on and so forth, took pictures, and then left.
And you haven't heard from them since?
I have not heard from them.
Right.
That is of the January 14 attack.
Right.
But then for the December 23rd attack, where we were ambushed, we wrote petition to the Inspector General of Police and the National Security Advisor. And then we submitted audio record made by the SA to the governor, one Chinasa, notorious for carrying out physical attacks against opponents of the governor in Imo. And this evidence was given, which I also sent to you and every other person. And then the police did not investigate it. Then he attacked at his wanted with who they meant, the same language, the same kind of people that ambushed us on December, were the same kind of people that brought the terrorist attack to our homes. And if the police have at least carried that first investigation and arrested Chinasa to make inquiries and the investigation, maybe we will not have gotten to this bloody one that happened to us. So I have serious concern about why the police first did not investigate the threat to kill me, did not also investigate the threat that was also carried out and I was ambushed, and also did not also come up to tell us what is the status of the investigation of the bloody terrorist attack that have been carried. So it makes me to feel like, is it that they have decided that let me be killed at all costs, that they cannot do their job? And that would be very, very painful and undermining of these institutions.
Yeah, that would be a travesty of justice, which under any circumstances would be absolutely unacceptable. But beyond sort of speculating and beyond sort of allegations, which, to be totally fair, may not necessarily be justified, are you any clearer now about who carried out this attack on you? Or is there still a lack of clarity or some confusion there? And I'm asking you to think of it legally rather than just, people you may not get along with. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to want to kill you.
Well, I will not be doing a good service to myself if I don't speak truth at every time, because God has given me a second life. Here, when you listen to the audio message from the governor's SA, and then you listen to the first attack of December, when we were ambushed after Obioya, and they opened fire. But luckily on that particular one, I was not inside the convoy. And then he was in a healer's vehicle with the same hooded men speaking fluent rivers and biases slangs that normal courtiers from that side used to speak. And I say specifically that this is the man that laid the assault. So that's why I said categorically, It was state militia sponsored. And I'm waiting for anybody to give me a contrary investigative report to this evidence I have put. And let me give you another information. Maybe when the governor was speaking, he didn't know that we also do our investigation. He was alluding to ESM people operating from our area, blah, blah, blah. We have gone even into an investigation. Let me give you one information that today we decided to bring it, and also later you look at it because it's evidential. Here is a Highlander that was snatched in Owerri. Mark my words, snatched in Owerri. That belongs to the woman from Afuku. The husband is in coma now. The registration number is there. They took the car from Owerri, beat the man and the woman, and then this is the car that contained the explosive that was being thrown. Now the question now is, how did they take the car from Owerri, drive all the way from Owerri, passing all those areas they have, ESA, Nebubag, and so on, and get to Akokwa? That is the reason why they were asking for the direction, because they are not from our side. And now when they were going, because they were panicking, you can see that that car is inside a ditch. So they moved some of the explosive into the other vehicles and then set the car ablaze. We were able to pick the number plate, and we have even run a check. And then the woman in question, we have even contacted the woman. The husband is in hospital in Owerri. So there's one fact here. This came from Owerri direction, because this guy is evidence, and the man is alive. I mentioned his name today. So when the governor was talking about those ESN things, because in Imo today, if you are struggling with anything, with anybody can kill anybody in Imo today, and they say, oh, it's unknown gunmen. There is a different aspect of this unknown gunmen issue with which they are using now to cover all sorts of crimes. And that's why I said politicizing the security challenges in Imo will not help anybody. And that is what also the man have shown in the last 3 years that he's an expert in doing. I say leave politics out of this. Because there is a group of militia that is working for you. There are people who are also agitating, and there are also different groups. So let us, and that's why I keep saying, Charles, I said, the first thing that I was begging the president, which one of the things some of them don't like me, I said, people are profiting from this security in Imo and South. They are making money from it. But they should look at the long-term implication of what they're doing. I said, President Muhammad Buhari, in the interest of kickstarting genuine reconciliation and addressing of some of these issues, that since there's judgment of court, not one, not two, that have ordered that you should release Mazin Nnamdi Kanu, release Mazin Nnamdi Kanu on whatever way you want to do it. And then let's get to the negotiation table and address some of these injuries so that you can separate the agitators from the real criminals that are murdering people. But people don't like that. Whenever I go to that side, they feel so bad because people are making money from those issues. And I continue to say that that is the first step towards reducing tension, going back to the table, and finding a way to separate all these criminalities and deal with them decisively. But it's obvious that some people want this air of unknown government in Imo so that blood will continue to flow.